December 2025, Inter Miami wins the MLS title for the first time in its history. Lionel Messi lifts the trophy, and in the stands, owner David Beckham celebrates. His club is now valued at over $1.3 billion, more than Inter Milan or Newcastle, a club he was able to secure for a bargain, thanks to a nearly invisible clause written into his contract almost 20 years earlier. Because the story doesn't begin in Miami. It begins in 2007, when Beckham decides to leave Real Madrid to join the Los Angeles Galaxy. At the time, the football world doesn't understand. His salary is cut by 3. MLS is seen as a secondary league. People talk about Californian sunshine, a comfortable end to his career, the American dream. But Beckham doesn't move to the United States to slow down. He goes with a strategy, a single line in a contract. An option that will allow him, a few years later, to acquire an MLS franchise at a bargain price. And that simple clause will not only change David Beckham's trajectory, it will transform Major League Soccer. So how did one contract clause allow Beckham to revolutionize football in the United States and turn it into a global economic powerhouse? That's what we're going to analyze in this video. And to understand it, we have to go back nearly 20 years. January 2007, David Beckham announces that he is leaving Real Madrid to join the Los Angeles Galaxy. In Madrid, he earns around 18 million euros per season. In Los Angeles, his salary drops to about 6.5 million euros. From a sporting perspective, the decision raises questions. MLS does not have Europe's prestige. Stadiums are not full, the league is still young. But more importantly, MLS does not operate like European leagues. There is no promotion. There is no relegation. It is a closed league, a limited number of franchises, a typically American system similar to the NBA or the NFL, where investors buy the right to operate a team in a specific city. And above all, it is a league in expansion. Every new franchise that enters mechanically increases the value of the others. It is not just a championship. It is an economic model built around scarcity. And that is exactly what Beckham understands. With his agent, Simon Fuller, he does not just negotiate a player contract. He negotiates economic leverage. First lever, a percentage of the revenue he generates from merchandising, ticket sales, and partnerships. His arrival becomes a direct profit center. Second lever, the designated player rule. Before Beckham, MLS operates under a strict salary cap. Each team has a very limited overall wage budget. In theory, it is impossible to pay a superstar at European standards. With Beckham's arrival, the league creates an exception. Each franchise can now sign up to 3 designated players. Players whose salaries exceed the cap without penalizing the rest of the squad. It is an internal revolution. MLS opens itself to the importation of global stars, and Beckham is the first to benefit. But the third lever is the most important, a purchase clause, an option allowing him at the end of his career to acquire an MLS franchise for $25 million. At the time, that figure seems high for a still marginal league. In reality, it is a historic opportunity. Beckham does not just sign to play, he signs to buy into the capital of an expanding closed league. And that is where everything changes, because Beckham was the only one who realized that in reality, this clause was worth far more than $25 million. The real difference between Beckham and the rest of the football world in 2007 wasn't his talent, it was his vision. In Europe, a club's value depends primarily on its results. If it wins, its valuation rises. If it loses or misses a season, its value can drop sharply. Everything is tied to performance on the pitch. In MLS, it's different. To enter the league, you don't need to win. You need to pay an expansion fee. Concretely, when a new team wants to join MLS, its owners must pay a significant sum to the league in order to secure the right to create a franchise in a specific city. That money is then distributed among the existing owners. The result, every new entry mechanically enriches the clubs already in place. In 2007, an MLS franchise is worth around $10 to $20 million. The league is still young, lightly covered by the media, and the $25 million clause negotiated by Beckham almost seems expensive. But when Beckham activates that clause in 2014, the situation has changed. The most recent expansion teams are already selling for around $100 to $150 million. The value has multiplied 5 or 6 times in just a few years, and the trend continues. In 2023, San Diego pays $500 million to join MLS. By 2025, the average franchise valuation exceeds $500 million, and some are worth more than $1 billion. Beckham doesn't just see a league, he sees a system where the number of spots is limited, where every new entry drives prices higher, and where owners share in the growth. In other words, he understands that owning an MLS franchise does not depend solely on sporting results. It depends on a model designed to increase club valuations over time, and that's exactly what he anticipates as early as 2007. But understanding the system wasn't enough. He now had to choose the right city to maximize its potential. And once again, Beckham's choice is not romantic, it is strategic. Miami is not just an attractive city, it's a gateway to Latin America. South Florida is one of the U.S. regions with the largest and most dynamic Hispanic population. Football is culturally embedded there. While other American markets still need to educate their audience about soccer, Miami already has a natural foundation. Even the club's name reflects this. Club International de Football Miami, a name chosen to create a direct link with the city's Hispanic community. This is not random marketing, it is identity positioning. Beckham is not simply creating a team, he is building a brand designed for a specific market. But the choice of Miami goes beyond culture alone. The city is experiencing strong demographic growth. It attracts capital, tech, finance. It is reinforcing its image as a global metropolis. And in the background, the 2026 World Cup is approaching. The timing is ideal. Then comes the Miami Freedom Park project, a complex estimated at nearly $1 billion, a stadium integrated into a large entertainment district, shops, restaurants, public spaces. Beckham is not just building a stadium to play football, he is developing an ecosystem, a venue capable of generating revenue year-round, even outside match days. The project goes beyond the pitch. It aligns with the city's broader economic transformation. But even with the right city and the right model, one element was still missing, an accelerator capable of taking the project to another level. And that accelerator arrives in 2023 when David Beckham pulls the ultimate lever, Lionel Messi. His arrival does not only change the sporting level, it transforms the scale of the project. First, from a media perspective, Inter Miami explodes on social media. Millions of new followers in just a few weeks and instant global visibility. Then economically, 18 new sponsors sign with MLS in the year following Messi's arrival. The partnership between MLS and Apple enters a new dimension. MLS Season Pass subscriptions jump by 46% between February and July 2023. Messi himself receives a percentage of the new subscriptions generated. Stadiums sell out wherever Miami plays, and the club's revenue rises from $56 million to over $200 million within 2 seasons. A brutal acceleration, and most importantly, Messi does not come for just 1 year. He extends his contract until 2028. Beckham therefore secures both a sporting and commercial cycle for several years. By the end of 2025, the club is valued at $1.35 billion, the highest in the league, ahead of LA Galaxy, and sporting validation arrives at the same time when the club wins the championship. And yet, David Beckham has no intention of stopping there. The 2025 title validates the model. Messi validates the global exposure. The valuation validates the financial strategy. But for Beckham, this is not an end. It is a transition. Until now, Inter Miami has grown thanks to 3 levers: the 2007 clause, the city of Miami, and the Messi effect. In 2026, the project changes in nature. The club invests heavily during the winter transfer window. Nearly $38 million spent, notably on Rodrigo de Paul, permanently signed for around $15 million. Investments aimed at dominating MLS in a sustainable way, and the timing is coherent. Messi is under contract until 2028. Miami Freedom Park opens its doors. Revenues are rising sharply. Phase 1 was about creating value. Phase 2 is about stabilizing that value. But this is where the real test begins. Until now, everything has worked perfectly. But the question is simple. What happens after the 2026 World Cup effect and after 2028 when Messi's contract ends? Today, a large part of the global exposure depends on him. Apple subscriptions surged because of him. Sponsors aligned because of him. Sold-out away tours happened because of him. Yes, Beckham has built a solid structure, but will that structure hold without the biggest star on the planet? Second question, can MLS continue to replicate this model elsewhere? Expansion fees have exploded. San Diego paid $500 million to join the league. But this system works as long as investors want to enter, as long as soccer keeps growing in the United States, as long as the 2026 World Cup acts as an accelerator. Scarcity drives prices up, but if demand slows, the mechanism can cool down. And that is where Beckham's bet becomes interesting, because his project no longer relies solely on Messi. It relies on an established fan base, on a brand that has become global. In 2007, people thought David Beckham was moving to the United States to quietly wind down his career. Nearly 20 years later, he owns one of the most highly valued clubs in world football. He didn't just sign a contract. He anticipated a system. He understood how a closed league operates. He saw what MLS could become before anyone else did. And above all, he turned a single line in a contract into a sporting and financial empire. So the real question today may no longer be whether he succeeded. It may be this: has David Beckham just proven that he is the most visionary businessman in modern football history? Or will his model only hold as long as the Messi machine keeps running? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, boost it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. See you soon. Bye.